Hey everyone, today I'm going to walk you through 5 different ways that you can actually stylize images inside of Storyline. There are more ways, but I wanted to really focus in on 5 different ones that I've used to adjust just bringing in or just kind of your static image. So let's go ahead and just dive into the first one. So number 1, cropping. Cropping your images can help you stylize your images in various different ways. So I'm going to pull up Storyline and I'm going to show you this example right here. So when I bring in an image, let's go into a blank page, for example. So this one just has some text. If I go ahead and insert an image, whether I'm doing an AI generated image using the AI assistant, or if I'm just grabbing one from the library, either way is you're going to get dimensions that may not fit perfectly for the type of content that you want. So I'm going to go ahead and insert just an image. And that one is actually the AI image. Let's not do that one for now. If you want to check out the AI assistant and generate images, you can check out my full course, or you can go ahead and check out my previous videos as well. Let's go into here and let's go into photos for the content library. And let's just bring in business photos. So some type of business photo, doesn't matter what it is at this point, we're just going to bring that in. I like this one. I'm going to go ahead and click on insert. So it's going to insert my entire image, but the problem is then I just have to figure out, okay, how to make this work. I want to really focus in on the paper and the graphs. So how do I make that work? First step is to crop. And so I'm going to come into crop here. And so under the format tab, I go into crop, and then I go ahead and crop it to really the focus point that I want, which the focus point in this case is going to be, let me hit crop again. It kind of went out of it, but let's go ahead and just focus in on that graph, and we're going to do that. All right, so now I can click anywhere else to get outside of it, and this is where I can then start to play around with it and adjust it. I want this to fill the entire screen here, or the half of the screen, but you can see that I have a little bit of room on the right-hand side. So this is where I can come back into the Format tab. So by clicking on Crop again, I can then stretch this out to the stage, and it kind of snaps right there. But I want the paper to be centered in there, so now I can move within the crop, I can move that center and have that adjust there. So that is tip number 1, is to do image cropping. So tip number 2 is to do shape cropping. It's very similar. So instead of cropping the image like as it comes by default, what I can do is I can actually generate a shape, and then I can change it out for an image, or I can take an image and I can crop it into a shape. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next page here, and I want to have a business person, like a professional looking person here. So let's go ahead and go into our library, and let's go into our photos, and let's just find somebody that is going to be this person, the voice, whatever we're quoting inside of the text. So I'll just click on this one right here. I'm still under the business, for example, and I'm going to click on insert. Now, the first thing I want to do, it depends on the type of shape that you're actually using. The first thing I want to do is get to the proportions that will help with that shape. Because to crop to a shape is fairly easy. If I go into the Format tab, then I can come over to Picture Shape. If I go into Picture Shape, I can choose any one of these shapes, and it will actually crop to that shape. So even if it's an arrow up, arrow down, great. If it's like a star, and I wanted the person in the star there, great, you can do that as well. But if I start to come into like something like a circle, notice how it's not a circle or a perfect circle, it is basically an oval. So what I'd want to do, if I want this to be a perfect circle, let me go ahead and do Control Z to go back to our rectangle there. What I'd want to do is get our crop to a perfect square, basically. So it doesn't matter what the size is, but what I'd want to do is come into here, and I'll probably bring this down first and figure out what the size is I want for there. And you can see the numbers as I start to crop it down. I don't want it right up against her head there. So I think about 520 is about the size that I want. So I'm going to come over to the right-hand side, and I'm going to bring this down to 520 as well. Now, just like we learned about with the cropping the shape, I can move this person forward or backwards inside of that crop, but I need that perfect square in order for this to work good. So I'm just going to click offside here. And now what I do is I come into Format tab, and then I go into Picture Shape, and then go into Circle. And now we have our perfect circle here. So I can resize that, make that look great. And there we go. I now have this more interesting image in a crop basically that I couldn't get before. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to go ahead and click on insert, and then we're going to bring in another image here. And let's have just a building, for example. I think something like that. Let's just do that here. And now what I'm going to do is picture shape, but I'm going to do something like this. So you can see it's a more interesting kind of image. But now as I start to, let me cut this. Let's go to a different page. I'm going to go into the next page here, and I'm going to paste this right there. All right. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, this is where I would start to adjust like the yellow line if I don't want the slash to be so drastic. But then if I want this to be kind of off the stage with this slash coming here a little earlier, what I would do is I'd move the shape off the stage to where I can't see the stage anymore there. Then what I would do, and let's say I want to move the building over to the left a little bit more, I would then come into the crop here, for example, and I would move my image over a little bit more here. So just by double clicking or going into format and going into crop, I'm then able to adjust that and it will bring my image over. Now I could just move that image down below my text and maybe adjust my text a little bit so it gives me a little bit more room to work with here. And then let's stretch that out a little bit more too. So now we have that image inside of a shape there. So that is tip number 2, to crop your images to shapes to get a little bit more of a style. Now let's go ahead and talk about adjusting the filters on your image. So this is tip number 3, adjusting filters. So I'm going to go into the next page and I'm going to do a similar crop of this person right here. So I could either just copy and paste in, or we can just find another person if we wanted to. But what I want to do is just change up some of these filters so it adds some style to it. So I'm going to go into the Format tab, and these are the adjust. I call them filters, but they're really adjusting like the brightness and the contrast and the color and stuff like that. And I want to specifically add some color filters. So I'm going to go down to Recolor, and this is where I can add some pretty cool styles of like a red color or a dark color or a blue color if I wanted to add a little bit more style to that specific image. If I wanted just like a bright color or something like that. If I don't find the color I want, or if you just want like black and white, you can go into black and white or sepia or washed out. Washed out is good for like a background. If there's like text that's going to go above it, washed out might be a good option there as well. But I'm going to go down to more variations, and then I'm going to go ahead and select a different kind of red color. I just want it to be a slight red color, not a real dark red color there. And that will allow me to add that variation. Now you can then come in here with that color filter and you can adjust the brightness. So if you want it to be more neutral, you can see that it takes that color and it just makes it a little bit darker. If you want it to be a little bit lighter, you can see that it takes that color and adds a little bit more brightness to it. You could do the same thing with brightness and contrast. So you can adjust these two things to be able to adjust and get the style of the image using these different filters that you want to add a little bit more life or a little bit more variation to your images as well. So that is tip number 3, being able to adjust these different filters. Now tip number 4 allows us to add other things to these images. And these are things that you've probably used, but in combination of them, that's where it'll stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to come into here, and this is actually the picture effects. So if I come into the effects, we have things like drop shadow. We have things like reflection. We have things like glow or soft edges. If I come into drop shadow, this is the different types of drop shadows. We can do inner drop shadow. Now notice that's actually pretty interesting, where it kind of adds like a border or an indent to the image as well. If you need to adjust the drop shadow or any of those effects, you can select this drop down box. You can go into shadow and you can go into shadow options. Or you can always, on any of these picture effects here, you can also click on this little expand button. This will show you all of the different effects and the different things that you can do with those effects. So you can go all the way to shadow, and then you can start to adjust the shadow. So we have transparency. I can up the transparency a little bit, and you can see how it affects the transparency there. I'm going to go back into here because for some reason it swapped it got rid of my picture shape. So I'm going to take my picture shape and bring it back to the circle there. All right, so let's come back into our shadow effects here. So shadow options. And I'm gonna up the transparency a little bit more. You can see that if I just want like a little subtle shadow there, like an inner shadow, it then adds that as well. If I wanted to adjust the blur, how much does it actually blur? If you want to have like a vignette style, you can go ahead and do that. Or distance, how much off-put, if you want to have like more of a shadow on the right or more of a shadow on the left. You can adjust that output and angle as well if you want the angle to be a little bit different. So just by coming into these different effects, you're able to get different types of visuals by adjusting those effects. I want to do one more thing here, and let's go into picture effects, and let's go ahead and do glow. So if we do glow, I don't always like these, but what you could do is come in here and just add a small glow. And if you just do a small glow, it adds just a little bit of a highlight to it as well. So those are picture effects and the ability to adjust those picture effects. And that is tip number 4 for your image. Tip number 5 is doing something that I actually typically in my training tell people not to do. But there's times where I want to add like a picture effect. So I'm gonna go ahead and just get rid of the shadow, and I'm gonna say no shadow here, and we're gonna get rid of the glow, so I'll say no glow here, and I'm gonna change this back to a square. I want this to look like more of a picture. So if I go into the recolor, I can just add like a sepia tone. I'd probably wanna take the contrast and the brightness back to their regular one. So if you need to, you can click on reset picture and it will reset it back to its normal one. And then you can go back to sepia here. So let's just do a sepia tone there. And I believe I've been calling it sepia. Yeah, it is sepia. Okay, just wanted to make sure. But I also want to have a sepia, but I want it to be a little bit darker as well. So I think that looks a lot better. Now I'm going to go into the border. Now in the border, let's go ahead and add an outline here. And I'm going to give it enough of an outline to kind of stand out here. That adds a little bit of kind of like an old profile or old, the Polaroid, that's the word I'm looking for, a Polaroid image here. But I want to change that border to a white color. So I'm going to just adjust that to be more of a white color here, which then goes away automatically. Now I can adjust that and I can actually bring that back by going in and adding a shadow. And so just by adding a shadow, it now shows me where the border is, but I also want to just clean up the shadow a little bit. I want the shadow to be, and I find the sweet spot to be somewhere above 80, possibly even 90. Let's go ahead and adjust that to 90 here. And I'm gonna just take the size down to 101. I just want it to stand out just a little bit. So I'm gonna take this actually down to 85. So you can see here, just by adding the border, it's now added kind of like this Polaroid effect here. I can do it that way, or I can combine shapes and add shapes behind my image as well. So I'm actually gonna get rid of the shadow here. Let's do something different. So I'm gonna get rid of my border, and I'm also gonna get rid of my shadow. Now what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go ahead and take my image, or sorry, insert a shape. So I'll go into my shape here, and I'll drag this just a little bit beyond. And I really want to make this look like a Polaroid. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to get rid of that border because I don't like borders on shapes. It just adds extra layers. But I'm going to make this into a white color here. So we'll have that be a white color. But let's go back in and add our drop shadow. And then let's expand that out. And let's say that our shadow is going to be 85 is what I wanted. So I'll do 85 here. And I think that's perfect right there. And I'll move that below the image. So you can see now I need to center this a little bit. So I'm going to hold shift down, take my two different images, center that. So now I have even on the left and even on the right. But I'm going to move it up, just moving my arrow buttons up. I'm going to move it up a little bit. And I'm going to add some text below this. And so we're going to say sample text. And I'm going to make sure that that text is black. So I'll just have that be black. And let's call her Jane Doe, for example. And then 1922. I don't know why I'm coming up with that year. But if I want this to be down at the bottom, you can actually take in on any shape. You can come down here and do align text and go down to the bottom. So now we have this kind of Polaroid effect. So this is in combination of using the images, you can also use shapes here. If I go back into here, what I could do with something like this is I can actually, let's go ahead and delete that. Oh, no, let's bring that back and let's add a color overlay here. So we're going to recolor. We're going to have this be kind of a slightly color here, or slight color. And then we can use shapes to add more to it. So we could even use shapes like, let's say like a circle border right here. And we can adjust the inside of the circle. And so let's go ahead and get rid of that border and then say no outline. And we'll change the fill to white. And then I'm going to just kind of overlap this a little bit, but I want to also change the transparency of this. So selecting the shape fill, I can change the transparency using this slider. And you can see that it kind of looks weird in development mode, but if I go ahead and preview this, using shapes to overlay and to add some more style to it is really the thing that I wanted to talk about with this tip. So to me, that looks pretty cool just to kind of have that additional overlay using shapes there. And you can see that even going back into some of my other pages, not that one specifically, but I added something like this here, and then I added icons, a little bit more transparent icons to add a little bit more like sparkles and other things like that to add a little bit more style and addition to my images. Those are 5 tips. If you like this type of format of video, this is the first time. I really haven't done a lot of like 5 tips to do this. So if you like this format, go ahead and click on the like button on my YouTube channel and subscribe to my channel, as well as hit the bell notification so you get notified of all future videos as they come out. And also comment down below, say, hey, I do like this format. I would love to see tips and kind of basic tips and tricks inside of Storyline or Rise or Camtasia or anything like that. Also, if you want to check out more, you can head on over to my website at learningdojo.ninja. Here you can check out all of the different apps I've been developing, Coach app, you can check out Checklist app, Task app, Dream Crusher app. You can also check out full courses covering everything from A to Z in Articulate Storyline 360, JavaScript for Storyline, XAPI Fundamentals, Articulate Rise, Custom Scorum as well. You can also check out all of my previous blog posts and also download free templates on my website. All right, that's all I have for you today. So thanks everyone. I'll see you next time.